Atletico Madrid, the first big scalp, I think it's fair to say, of this tournament. They go home, Botafogo through to the next round. Confirmation as to why, in the end, that goal difference. Remember, Atleti lost that opening day against PSG, and that proved to be decisive. PSG go through, as do Botafogo. Neelam joins us. Neelam, I'm going to start with you because I know you watched this. In the end, sour grapes from Simeone saying the referee was against him.
No, not necessarily. I think from their perspective, you can see why they would be unhappy. But I think the bigger thing is the fact that they've had 23 shots on goal and scored one in a game where they needed to be scoring. I think it was 3 that was going to be the number. Yes, they were kind of going for it, but they never really felt too dangerous until after Griezmann scores that goal. And then there's a sense of this belief now, maybe they can do it, maybe they can't. But in reality, it just wasn't going to be enough. I think Botafogo, they knew what they needed to do, and I thought they did it very well overall. I think for Atletico Madrid, that's such a disappointing exit to the tournament. And I think, as they were saying in the commentary, you know, they're the first side of note from Europe to be eliminated from the competition, and not many people would have thought this would be the group that would cause that. But again, as we see from the stats there, like, to have that many shots, to have your expected goals be that high, and for you to score one goal, I think it's more a case about really poor finishing, which unfortunately for them has been the case for the previous 2 games as well.
What was interesting, Gavin, the build-up to this tournament, Simeone coming out and saying all the right things with regards to Atleti's ambition. Obviously, a disappointing end to the season in the end with the Champions League exit, Copa del Rey as well, and where they finished in the league. He was hoping maybe this could give them a bit of a kick up the bottom, but in the end, their bottom's going home.
Yeah, it is, and I think Neelam kind of underscored why on the pitch. There's no question that they were very prepared for this tournament, and that they had kind of put a lot of chips in there because the way they were set up this summer, they really wanted that prize money to, you know, with Real Madrid changing coaches and stuff, trying to narrow the gap at the top, but not to be.
No, not to be at all. Athletic out.
I'll be honest, I'm a little bit surprised with the stats. I thought Oblak had to make a couple of good saves from a couple of opportunities. So to see a 0.66 or whatever it was expected goals from Botafogo kind of bemuses me. Listen, no question, I thought Atleti were the better of the 2 teams. But this quite easily could have gone the other way, and in the end, Atleti only have themselves to blame, really.
So just go back to something that Gab said there. Yep. It's quite interesting. And in terms of, you're talking about the prize money. So, you know, without getting into the nuts and bolts, was the most important thing for the Atletis of this world and some of these other clubs, is it to take the pot of gold, is it to take the cash? Or is there any sort of gravitas from a European perspective, not from a South American perspective, because we know they hold it in much higher esteem?
Look, I genuinely think it's a new competition, right? This is something people are going to debate. And the reason I put the prize money first is that they look at this and they would say, well, are we better than Man City? Are we better than Real Madrid? You know, are we better than Bayern? Should we be trying to win it? Of course, we try to win it. But if not, let's at least go deep in the tournament so that we come home with 60 million instead of 25 million. And that's why I made the prize money point. But no, I don't think they're just here for the money. I think they're motivated, and I think it matters. Not every team necessarily feels that way, but it's a chance also to sell your brand, your audience in a new country. And look, some people says, oh, look, they're treating it like a preseason, which doesn't make any sense to me, because how can you treat it like a preseason when then the players are going on holiday for 3 weeks? I think once they're here, and speaking to some of the people at Chelsea and at Juventus over the last week when I was at their games, certainly here the focus is on going as far as you can in the competition.
But that is a positive from Atleti's perspective. A positive from a negative is that we talked about La Liga, we talked about them a lot last year, along with some of the other big guns in La Liga every week. And it's a well-known fact that they have a beefy, big squad. And they did disappoint after a very, very good run up till Christmas time. And then it sort of faltered for them. And you know, he really wasn't, and really is questioned, is he, Simeone, in terms of his decision-making. The fans love him. But they will have an opportunity now to have that longer period than other teams, to have that 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever he decides to give his players off, to get ready for this big season in La Liga. Because it is going to be a big season again, and they are going to be expected, to, like they were last year, they didn't do it, but they are going to be expected to be in the hunt, pushing for a title again.
Especially early on with Real Madrid in theory handicapped, given how long they go in this tournament. We know, of
and
course,
the changes that
Jude Bellingham will be out already, won't he, for the start of the season. A lot more Club World Cup questions on Extra Time. As always, you can check that out over on our YouTube channel. Right then, it is hot here in the States at the moment. It's always hot here in the States in June and July. This is no surprise, surely, to anyone. This, of course, photo went viral. The Borussia Dortmund substitutes during their game at the weekend, watching the game from the locker room where it was cooler, getting them out of the heat. Enzo Maresca talking about how Chelsea have dealt with the heat so far, looking ahead to their final game in the group stages, saying it's almost impossible to train. We are trying just to save energy for the game. I always try to avoid excuses, but it's hot. It's hot, and it's difficult to work with this temperature. For more on this, Naden's with us, of course. Season in MLS, he knows what about the heat. Alex knows about it, trailing the teams around everywhere, of course, within this summer heat here in the States. Where to start with all this? I want to start with the Dortmund situation. Now, it's interesting. Stevie defended actually yesterday, which I was quite surprised at, given that it was Stevie. He has no problem with the team sitting in the locker room when it's too hot outside.
I'll go back to the 96 preparation or 98 for the World Cup or the Euros. I can't remember the year. And we talked about places where it is hotter than others. And the place that I found back in those days, for me, not being a regular in the United States, was Washington, D.C. and Maryland at the end of May. And the humidity down there, and I can remember some of the guys on the bench, they were soaking the towels in the ice box in the water and sitting with it on their heads. So I kind of somewhat understand what they're doing because they're just not used to that heat. Now, this is not a normal heat, as we know, for this time of year. We're probably up about, 15, 20 degrees above where we normally are. So it's not just warm, it's a heat wave. And so I kind of get that if you're coming from, particularly from countries where, it gets hot, but it doesn't get hot on a regular basis. If you're sitting on the bench, and I know what Stevie means. If you're sitting on the bench, you just don't want to be sitting there baking.
Right.
It's not doing you, even though you might not be exercising, you might not be warming up, it's really not doing you any favours unless you're sitting in a really, really seriously shaded area. So I kind of get it. We're in the mid-90s here at the moment. Some places in the US are actually above 100.
Yeah.
So I do kind of get this.
Shaka, in your MLS days?
Look, I totally understand, and I'm with Stevie on this. I have no problem with the subs sitting in the dressing room during the game. Just sitting in that heat drains you. And I think so to get out of that heat, at least, you're able to hold on to some of your energy. Listen, I experienced just playing with Dallas. Fairly regularly down in Dallas. Just to put things in perspective, I landed in DFW, it was August, 10 o'clock at night. It was 98 degrees at 10 o'clock at night. And FC Dallas, when we trained, you would train at 8:39 in the morning because by the time 10 o'clock hit, you could not be outside again. You just had to be indoors. So in an effort to deal with that heat, you have to change up your entire schedule. How European teams, as we know, would normally come out at 10:30 in the morning, albeit European time, around then to start training, that has to change entirely. And as for when you schedule the games, you cannot have anything during those daylight hours. It's just inhuman.
They are, Gav. Why are they doing it? Why are we having games at 3 p.m. Eastern time where it is peak heat?
Yeah, but it's hotter than normal.
Yes, I understand that, but it's so surprised, Craig. It wasn't like last summer where we were going, oh, it's nice and cool, isn't it, in the moment? It's hot. It's not a surprise. It's hot. It's not a surprise at 3 p.m. Eastern. It is hot. So why are we playing games at this time? Why is the semi-final at this time? Why is the final at this time?
Okay, first of all, I am not your FIFA representative, but I will try to address this. Look, part of it is they want to make this a global tournament, right? So you don't want to have multiple games at the same time. So you have 4 games, you have 4 slots, and somebody's got to play earlier in the day. Part of it is the television audiences in Europe, simply put, right? That also matters. If you play at noon or at 3 o'clock on the East Coast, then they can watch it in prime time in Europe. That's where a lot of these clubs are from. That plays into it as well. I think for the World Cup, they need to figure something out. I don't know if there's ways to cool the stadium like they supposedly did in Qatar. I don't know if there's other things. What I don't want, we all remember the '94 World Cup final, which kicked off at noon in LA, and what a car crash that was. That doesn't help.
But it's...
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is when you have, it's like when you have people come to your house. No.
Mr. Social Butterfly.
I really want to see where this is going.
No, I'm just for a little...
Shall I read the text that I sent you last week? Honestly. Craig, I'm 10 minutes from yours, so you're around. No, right?
I was having a bad time, right? I didn't want you around my freaking act. I wasn't in good. I looked like Robinson Crusoe, right? I wasn't in good shape. My point is, we've all had people at our places on holiday, right? I've got our places on holiday coming to the States, right? It's akin to them coming over here when it's like this now. They get out the car or they step into your deck in your back garden and they go, holy smokes.
Yeah, it's like walking into an oven.
They just don't understand it. They don't get it. And I think for a lot of these European players, not them all, because these clubs have got players from all over the world, but for a fair chunk of them, they step out of the hotel and it just hits them. And then when you're trying to play in the height of day and that kind of heat, and the heat isn't the biggest, it's the humidity. The humidity is the killer, and we've got a lot of it at the moment. So, but where I would take a little bit of umbrage with Maresca, because coaches always want to train. Oh, I want to train. I never get enough time to work with my players. They're training at this time of year. Again, the argument, they're still playing the Club World Cup, long hard seasons, not even pre-season. The training would have to be pretty light anyway. They've just finished a 9-month season, had a very short break, come out to the States, they have this Club World Cup. You're not really going to be putting your players through anything strenuous at all. Not because of the conditions and not because of you've had this long, hard season. Gab's right. It is something they are going to have to figure this out for the World Cup, because although it isn't normally this hot, in a year's time, it could come back. We could have a month of this during the World Cup, and it could completely kibosh the quality of some of the games.
Yeah, that's it, Nathan, because surely if you're FIFA, you want to market this tournament, but put on a show. And as Gab said, you think back to 94 and that final, it was anything but.
Yeah, I think these are all valid points. And I've got to say, when these teams, say from Europe and around the world, do come to America in June and July, it's not for the conditions. It's definitely for other things, because people will say how tough it is. And even, for example, things like the pitch conditions in terms of what they're used to. So yes, I think going into next year, FIFA really needs to look at it. But to be honest, I think their hands are tied. And I think as well, to link it to MLS, obviously it's a different competition. That was one of the things that I thought was the biggest flaw of MLS, is the fact that the game could never really be watched by masses around the world, because games always had to be played at night time. And I think if that's going to be the case for the World Cup next year, to try and help the players and sort of raise the quality, I think it'll probably be one of the least watched tournaments outside of the domestic nation itself.
Alex, you've done nothing but moan since coming to the States about the weather and about how hot it is. And people will be surprised of that, considering you live in Spain.
I haven't been moaning, but the players and the coaches have been moaning, that's for sure. Xabi Alonso was asked about this after the game in Charlotte yesterday. He said, look, you have to be a rocket scientist to know this is having an impact on the games, on the quality and on the players. I think we're seeing it as well in some of the decisions that are being made. Look at how Real Madrid have been very careful with bringing back Mbappe after his illness as well. He was back in the gym today, still not training. I think part of that isn't awareness. These are just really demanding conditions. And someone like Mbappe, the risk of dehydration and things like that, they've got to be extra careful in terms of bringing him back into the team. But yeah, lots of the Real Madrid players have talked about this. They played at 3:00 in the afternoon in Miami. They played at 3:00 in the afternoon in Charlotte as well. It's a late night game they've got next in Philadelphia. At least, of course, they're training in Palm Beach as well. So dealing with that humidity. But yeah, they're not happy about it. But ultimately, they all say the same thing, which is that there's nothing we can do. We have to accept this is the way it is. It's FIFA's call, and we're just trying to make the best of it. But Real Madrid, certainly, I mean, you saw them playing with 10 men as well, basically 90 minutes in their game in Charlotte yesterday after that early red card. And they really had to work incredibly hard. We saw that from Xabi Alonso, the number of subs he made as well, just because players just couldn't last the full 90 minutes.
FIFA talk about growing the game, around the world. It's already grown in Europe. So why are they catering to the European teams? Why is it so important? I remember Japan 2002. Brilliant. Everyone in the pub at breakfast. It was fantastic. It was kind of a bit unique, something a little bit different. Why are they so obsessed with having this at times where Europeans can watch it?
So well, first of all, it's not guaranteed it's going to be like this for the actual World Cup.
No, but when they were planning this, they must have known.
I think people need to remember this. When you talk about FIFA, greed, blah, 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 there's 211 member nations in FIFA. About 140, 150 of them, they couldn't run an FA without the money that FIFA gives them, right? So you have a president who keeps getting elected by saying, we're going to have these tournaments that generate money. And the only one that actually makes money is the Men's World Cup. Maybe this Club World Cup will make money one day. Hasn't yet. And then he goes and he redistributes this money out to the member nations so that smaller nations, poor nations can run FAs, right? That's the model, whether we like it or not. That's why they're so obsessed with money and growing the game and so on. And so to do that, you want to sell as many games as possible. And so you have games during the day. You have games that are accessible to your biggest markets. The US, Mexico are huge markets, so that's not a problem there so much. But then the next highest ones are going to be in Europe and in Asia. And if you play games at 9 o'clock in the evening, it's the middle of the night in Europe and Asia, and so they're worth less money to broadcasters. I mean, that's pretty much all it is. And there's also a school of thought that says it's a sporting event, it's a global festival, it's not just about the quality of the game, it's about making it accessible to everyone. And so let's try to have these games almost around the clock. And that's essentially the way the system is set up. We can think of another utopia where maybe we don't have the World Cup in just all one country. Maybe we have a little bit here and a little bit in Japan, so you can have games around the clock at reasonable kickoff times or whatever. Maybe there's other ways to do this.
Cam, don't make it worse.
For now, you're stuck with this. And yeah, it's really freaking hot here.
Ultimately, we're probably going to see, like, the World Cup. We're probably going to see this Club World Cup just going to Saudi Arabia, aren't we?
Where it's very temperate and mild year-round.
And there's a lot of money, which does feed the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long. I mean, look, let's face it. Saudi money is already bankrolling half of this, right? The zone deal, that's all Saudi money. It's putting $1 billion there, another 500 million. The whole budget is $2 billion, right? So $1 billion comes from Saudi via DAZN, or DAZN via Saudi. $500 million comes from different sponsors. Two of the biggest ones are Saudi or Saudi-influenced companies. So yeah, they have a lot of say on this. Maybe the next Club World Cup will be scaled down. Maybe it'll be a little different. Maybe they'll do a better job of selling it. But yeah, this is what we're facing right now.
Nadem, how do you fix this?
Yeah, obviously I have all the answers, so thank you for asking me that. I do not have a clue. I think it's interesting. It's interesting listening to what Gab's saying, though, in terms of, you know, that money trickling down and going to those other nations and stuff, those other FAs. Like, I do get it. But then from the sporting side of things, which is what myself and the guys on the panel are used to, it still doesn't feel right, if you know what I mean. Because essentially, it is the show. Yes, you want it to be accessible, but at what price? Because, you know, obviously not every team is in a position to where, you know, they have played a whole season. Like, we've seen that. We've seen the strength of some of those sides that maybe halfway through their season or just starting their season. But for the ones that have played 50, 60, 70 games already, to then be out in these conditions right now, as Craig has said, when they're, you know, they're quite tired and so on, you know, people won't really have a lot of sympathy because they're being paid well and so on and so forth. But from a health standpoint, this is as tough as it gets. And I think in our sort of lifetimes, I think the way that they've been pushed to this point is beyond what many of us probably thought would even be possible. So yes, I don't know how FIFA are going to change it. Obviously, they're going to try and make as much money as they can. But I think a lot of those players will continue to speak up until something changes. But whether or not that's the case, you know.
So it goes back to the original point, doesn't it? That basically the players, whether we agree or not, are kind of pawns in this sort of situation of trying to trickle money into all these different governing bodies around these different nations. 211 of them. How it's distributed, I don't know. But without the players and the clubs doing this, and the players playing, whether we agree it's too many games or not, we need them. I think there is. The players have been used here just to be able to fill the coffers of these other nations. Yeah. And the big argument is that the correct way to go in the long term? Is that going to have a detrimental effect to the game, to the players, to the quality when we get to August? We're going to find out.
But I think that one thing to note here is that the vast majority of professional footballers do not pay 50, 60, 70, right? It's only the real elites, and they're the ones who bring it in. And I'd argue, and I have argued, they have the leverage. In the same way that air traffic controllers, we don't let them go out, we limit the amount of time, or truck drivers, we limit the amount of time that they can work and the conditions under which they work. I would love it if some player took the lead. Next time around, Erling Haaland says, yeah, look, I've signed this contract, I get paid, whatever, 20 million a year. Tell you what, I'll take 75% of that. I'll take 15 million, but I'm only going to play 75% of the minutes this season. and you're going to figure out. And other people talk. They have the leverage to do this. They have the leverage to say no. And yet we're not seeing this. And it has to be the elite players at the top because they're the ones driving the bus on this one. They're the ones who have the leverage. And it simply hasn't resonated with them.
Have they got the leverage or are they're just puppets to the puppet masters who run the clubs? They have the leverage. They have the power. And when you talk about elite level players, and you're right, the vast majority of players are not suffering by this, right? The vast majority. But as a fan, as a viewer, as a season ticket holder, in whatever club and whatever country, really you're paying to see those elite level players.
Right.
You know, when NBC broadcasts a Premier League game, it's to see elite level players. When ESPN here broadcasts the Liga games and Bundesliga and the FA Cup and everything we've got, it's to see, yeah, we'll see other teams and we'll see other players, but we want to see the best. And we want to see the best playing the best. And are we going to get that if we continue to go down this road of the Club World Cup coming in here? Next year it's the World Cup. You have the African Cup of Nations, you have the Copa America, you have the European Championships. The big question is, for the elite level players who are the ones that the people really want to pay the big bucks for, when's it going to stop and is it going to affect the product? When it starts affecting the product, that's really going to be a big problem.
Go on, Jack.
My concern here, well, we keep talking about FIFA's money trickling down to the smaller nations. But at the same time, to Gab says that this FIFA Club World Cup doesn't seem to be making any money, certainly not right now, not yet, which means right now there's no money trickling down to those smaller nations. So the smaller nations, I come from one who relies so heavily on FIFA funding, are being scapegoated here at a time that I don't think they're deserving of.
No, there is. It's just that it's not organic. It's thanks to the Saudis. It's thanks to the Saudis.
By the sounds of it, the clubs are benefiting a whole lot more than those FIFA member nations.
And they're the ones who held the FIFA to ransom. I mean, the European club said, we'll come if you give us more prize money. Only 45% of the prize money is being handed out of merit. The other 55% is basically appearance fees. So Real Madrid will get 36 million just for showing up, and Auckland City, and don't laugh, will get, I think, 1.2 million just for showing up.
Here's Jude Bellingham after the game.
When we had our chances, we were clinical and we took them. So, yeah, good win. Still not perfect, but that's the beauty of it. I think we can still keep working. The coach's ideas are amazing, and we want to keep working in the direction that he wants us to go in.
Be great if he said the coach's ideas are rubbish. I prefer Ancelotti. That's enough of that. Alex, as much as Jude Bellingham won the player of the day yesterday, I can't remember what they call it.
Superior player.
Superior
player.
Superior player of the game.
What happened to just man of the match?
No.
Somebody's got to pay their bills.
Yeah, they do. Alex, it was really Thibaut Courtois who was the star, which just kind of epitomised how Real Madrid at times were hanging on.
Yeah, it was the collective display, I think. I mean, Courtois was 10 saves, I think, from him. Did play well. There were some other eye-catching performances as well. I thought Gonzalo Garcia, the young forward, did really well in the first half, played a role in setting up the goal for Arda Güler. Of course, the three midfielders were on the score sheet in Bellingham, Güler and Fede Valverde. But for me, it was about the team and it was about the coach, because what was really impressive, having gone down to 10 men so early after 7 minutes, was the way they kind of regrouped, reorganised and made it work. And like you say, they had to be incredibly efficient. They had 3 shots on target and scored 3 goals and won 3-1. And Pachuca made them work for it. You know, Rondon caused big problems for the defence. He was involved in Asensio's sending off. But overall, like I said, I think given the circumstances, playing with 10 men for that long, I thought Madrid did pretty well. And it was a sign that Alonso is starting to kind of get to grips with this team, the way that, like I said, he reshuffled. He said basically after the first cooling break, after half an hour, he talked to the players, moved things around, reshaped the midfield, and it worked pretty well. It was a sign that I think they're heading in the right direction. And talking to Alonso afterwards, he said he was that kind of in-game intelligence, he said, the ability to sort of read the game, understand what the game situation requires. He said that's going to make a big difference for them. At times last season, it felt like there wasn't enough of that from Real Madrid. It was kind of the same thing over and over again, often from Madrid, without much kind of flexibility or tactical variation and switching things up in games. And this was, I think, that's something we might see a bit more of in the coming season.
Who's his first choice defensive line, Alex?
It's a very good question. I mean, they've gone out and bought half a new defence, haven't they, in Trent and Howson. And based on some of what we've seen from this tournament so far, the other half needs to look as well, because Asensio's been badly at fault, got sent off against Pachuca, gave away the penalty in the first game against Al Hilal. Antonio Rudiger's coming back, and he's available. He came on as a sub yesterday. I think Rudiger goes into that centre-back pairing with Howson. Dean Howson's looked very, very good so far. And then the question is at left-back, of course. They wanted to bring in Alvaro Carreras from Benfica. He's still with Benfica at this tournament. They couldn't get that deal done. There was a disagreement with Benfica about that deal and the price and how it was going to be paid. So they're looking for a left-back. They've already signed, as I say, a right-back and a centre-back. And let's see if it's Rudiger who partners Howson. Like I say, Howson's been one of for me, the big positives so far, because what he gives them on the ball, especially bringing the ball out from the back, has been really, really impressive.
Fast forward to August 17th, Real Madrid's opening game, if that's indeed when they play. Who's your back four?
Well, Howson, as Alex said, Rudiger.
You'd have Rudiger over Militao, for example.
It depends on how the knee is.
Right.
I don't know. Possibly. I mean, it'd be great to have both those fit.
Yeah.
You've got David Alaba still there as well, who just seems to be continually.
He didn't look good last season.
His struggles have been continuous. But left back's a major issue. It was for Ancelotti. It continues to be some. Ferland Mendy, not convinced about him, although he's the best that they've got. Then you've got Fran Garcia. You've had Camavinga go back and play there. We saw Valverde having to play right back at times last year. That probably won't happen. Obviously, Carvajal's back as well. I think he's going to be fit for the new season. That's a huge blow for them because huge bonus for them. Sorry, because fitness depending, he's still one of the best around. But again, it's down to age and stuff. So I think there's a good signs of a back four there, and obviously a world-class goalkeeper. But that left side is still an issue, and it's an issue in terms of left back, and it's an issue all the way down that side.
Yeah.
Because we saw Bellingham have to go out and play there at times. Last year he wasn't entirely comfortable. We saw Vinicius Junior playing in that sort of natural left-hand side, failing to track back. So whoever they do bring in as left back, if indeed they do, possibly is going to be under a lot of pressure, a lot more pressure than they are on the right-hand side, where it seems to get a little bit more help. So that's a big position for them. One I think he has to address before, maybe not before the season starts, but before the end of August.
You sure it's going to be a back four?
Yes, we haven't got time to discuss that, Gab.
Well, I know Leverkusen, he played a back three.
Do that on the Gab and Jules show. City 6, Alain 0. Taking a look at the group. There it is then, Juventus and Manchester City, as you would expect, top of Group G. Nadem, as Mr. Mad City, I'm obliged to go to you because you're the only one who watched this game. What would you like to say?
Yes. Yeah, I watched this at 2 a.m. as well.
No,
so,
you
yeah,
didn't.
That's,
No, you didn't, Nadem. Don't give me that.
Okay. No, I did, but I was paid to do it, so please let me off. But anyway, in this, it was interesting, this game, just because at the end, if you see the players aren't really celebrating, it's because they're disappointed, because they knew they needed one more goal to put themselves top of the group going into that final game against Juventus. So it was actually quite exciting in some ways. Or either that or I was delirious. But the attacking play was there, seeing Shirky come on, Oscar Bobbs and so on, and they were very much on the front foot. I'll be honest, Alain, they weren't great. The goalkeeper wasn't great. But in reality, they ended up doing enough to help Juve. So now in that next game, City have to win if they want to finish top of their group and maybe, just maybe, have a nicer passage through to the later rounds of the top competition.
What's the tiebreaker if it's 0-0? You don't want Native to go and explain it?
If there's anyone in the room that knows this, surely it's
I
you.
have no idea.
No.
There
Juve goes through. It's goal scored. Yeah. It's goal scored, Gab.
There we go.
Goal
He's
scored,
completely made that up.
That's the difference, yeah.
Pep Guardiola sounds like a broken record, though, at the moment when speaking about the players that he's left behind, the size of the squad. This all kind of started around the FA Cup time. He said, I'd love to have the players that we have now all season. The problem is that they will be unhappy during the season. They will be sad. They'll be disappointed. I don't want that. For me, it's not a problem. I don't like to have 6-7 players just in case no injuries. Being at home, of course, that he left like Jack Grealish was at home, wasn't he? You look at this Nadem. Why is he talking about being sad? Why does he keep going on about this? It's just part of your life. It's part of your job. You've left them home because they're not good enough. Move on.
Oh my gosh, Dan Thomas, you are such a troll.
Well,
I
no,
think the
don't
point that he's trying to
I'm being
make
a
is one that everyone
Jack
else will
Grealish,
understand.
It's not in my plans for the
Yeah,
future.
it's the point.
I'm not, oh, boo-hoo, I'm sad because I can take him
everyone
with
else
us.
is talking about. It's more. It's about more than Jack Grealish.
Who
It's about
else?
more than that. Because, for example, at this tournament, the whole squad is there. So in this moment, you've got 11, 12 players on the bench who will believe that they could be and should be starting a game of football. If that was to roll into the next Premier League season, you don't have 11 people on the bench. So you're talking about 4 or 5 players that won't even make the squad altogether. And that disregards, say, maybe a James McAtee, you've got a Mateo Kovacic as well. You know, you can mention a Jack Grealish. So the fact is that the squad is functionally just too big. And obviously it's a luxury to be able to have that. But he's fine. When he picks 11 players, great. When there are probably 3 or 4 players that know they're going to play, great. But they're going to be 6 or 7 full internationals who will be disappointed most weeks. And that sort of feeling is one which will spread like a sense of negativity around that squad because they want to, everyone believes they should be playing or could be playing. So that's the thing that that's where I'm coming from in terms of saying the squad's too big.
Is Guardiola? Let me ask you a question. Has Guardiola got? And I have to believe that he has, with somebody of his gravitas and repute. He has a big say on transfers coming in. Nathan, am I correct?
Yeah, you could say that, yeah.
Well,
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so if he's got a big say in transfers coming in,
I feel a pile
he has all these players coming in. He has given the green light to all these players coming in. It is now the club's job, as Dan said, to get rid of these players that they don't want on the big wages.
Yeah, I mean, I presume he's familiar with Hugo Viana. I know he just arrived. I'm sure they've been introduced and they have a plan. I'm assuming some of these guys will move on, but I don't understand this crying over the big squad. A lot of clubs have big squad. Inter Milan, an enormous squad. You deal with it. They're professional players. You try to move them. It's difficult sometimes to move them because Man City players make a lot of money and they don't want to move and take a pay cut. But guess what? If you don't want to move and take a pay cut, then you can sit and be sad. Yeah. If you really want to play so badly because you love football, then you'll take a pay cut and move. You'll work something out with the club. The summer transfer window closes on August 31st. They have a long time to work this out.
Yeah.
I wish we could kind of move on from this point, unless he's trying to take pot shots at Hugo Viana and try to send a message and put pressure on him via the media. But it's too early for that, right?
The club can subsidise these things anyway to get players out.
And they do.
Even
That's
in
what Chelsea do.
Marcus Rashford, Aston Villa, subsidised for a short term.
Yeah, subsidised, Nadem. Sort it out.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, simple. But also, like, we disregard the fact that, like, he's been asked these questions. He's not going on his Twitter and releasing a statement every night. Oh, the squad's too big. The squad's too big. I feel so sad. Like, that's just the nature of, like, what this business is at this moment in time. And it's a big conversation for them. And it's obviously marring the sort of good form that they're in, relatively speaking. But I'm sure it will be dealt with, as Gav said. They've got a long time to do it.
Why doesn't he just come out and say, look, I got some big decisions to make at this moment in time and the upcoming pre-season and the season starting because we have a big squad. But that's what, as you said, that's what I'm paid to do. You can't have it both ways. And I understand. When you have a big beefy squad, it's more difficult to keep people happy. But that's your job. And also, he bemoaned last year he didn't have enough players. Now he's saying he's got too many players. He can't have his cake and eat it.
Shaka, speaking of cake and eating it.
I don't understand what the fuss is about. Those problems are of his or / of the club's making. And so you can complain about them all you like, but surely, kind of given your own experiences, given City's, you have to assume City know how to run a football club. I give no gravitas to any complaints at all.
It's not just one football club, many.
There you go. If you want to hear what Gab has to say.
Send them to Girona.
Jules, by the way, was very excited about this experimental formation that Pep used, didn't he? You can hear about, maybe you weren't listening.
The 3-1-6.
There we go.
Oh, you see that? You see Cole Palmer there?
No, I didn't see Cole. Oh, there he is. Yeah.
What's he got in his hair?
I don't know. What has he got? Like alien? I don't know, something. That's just very observant of you, Craig.
Oh,
it's some flowers. He's ready for carnival, Shaq. For the US, of course, with that 2-1 victory against Haiti yesterday. Tillman was on the scoreline as United States make it 3 wins out of 3. We're hearing from the player himself we're hearing what the boys on Football Americas had to say about Tillman in a moment. But first, this is Mauricio Pochettino's thoughts.
What a player, no? What a player that is showing in this camp all his talent and capacity. He recovered a lot of ball. He's always trying to help the team press, chasing back, playing in different positions. He can appear like a number 10 in between the lines, using the half space, but can be in the right or left side, wide. Or after can drop and play like a number 8, number 6. I think what a talented player. So pleased with him.
If there's one guy who I think has said, okay, I'm making a case, whatever that case is to be in the squad, I don't think to be a starter, it's got to be Tillman, right? 3 goals in 3 games.
I would probably say even to be a starter.
When everybody's back.
Well, bear with me for a second.
Steady.
No, it's not a steady because before Malik Tillman's only real competition was Giovanni Reyna. Where's Giovanni Reyna in this competition, in this panorama, in this field? Giovanni Reyna is on the side of a milk carton right now.
You're kind of saying that this is the assumption the U.S. will play with a 10.
That's the assumption, I feel. Yes. And under Mauricio Pochettino and his words about Malik Tillman and Malik Tillman's play over the last 2 years, Malik Tillman's play this last season where he's the best player in the Eredivisie, and you would say this is a player with a legit argument to crack the starting lineup, to play alongside of Christian Pulisic, to play alongside of Timothy Weah, to play alongside of whoever the 9 is at that moment, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie. Like, this is a player you could slot in there and say, okay, I could see this happening. This is realistic to me. Giovanni Reyna, where are you? Malik Tillman is here. That's the only doubt I have, if Gio Reyna can keep Malik Tillman out of the lineup. But that's the only player I realistically see right now threatening Giovanni Reyna.
You see Tillman as a potential starter with the U.S. team out?
I do. I have the exact same thought. We were there together.
Just to be honest, like this is a 3-game sample size. We got 20 games where he did nothing for the national team. He's doing it with the B. He's doing it with the B team against bad competition.
Can I stop you? I understand what you're saying, but show me a U.S. men's national team player that's not named Christian Pulisic who's done something with the U.S. men's national team, and that's where you get these players at the club level is all you have to go by right now because at the international level they've not shown you anything.
This is going to really pain me to say. But I have to agree a little bit more with Sebi on your Tillman analysis here. Tillman's been fine against some very, very average opponents.
Right now, Malik Tillman stands out.
Yeah.
Simple as that. You watch the game, you see the starting 11, you see the players, you see their performances, and you go, this guy is different. He knows what he's doing, and he's doing it right. And you can tell that Mauricio Pochettino trusts Malik Tillman.
Meanwhile, tonight is all about the conclusion of Group A. Porto taking Al Ahly. Porto looking for their first win of what's been a disappointing tournament so far. Meanwhile, all to play for, isn't it? As Inter Miami take on Palmeiras. For more on that, here's Lizzie and Alexis.
Big night, and we're back here at the Hard Rock Stadium. Lizzie is joining me. Inter Miami up against Palmeiras. Final game in the group, Lizzie, and a very interesting one considering the two favorite teams are the two playing right now here, and that's Inter Miami and Palmeiras. A draw could get both of them through, but come on, nobody wants to see a draw in this. So what kind of competition are we going to get from both sides, you think?
A huge one. I mean, Javier Mascherano, Inter Miami head coach, addressed media yesterday in the press conference and said, we're playing to win. We're playing our game, and our game is to be protagonists on the field. Again, no one wants a draw.
No.
Everybody wants to win. And by Inter Miami winning and beating Palmeiras, they end up leaders of the group, which is a huge thing heading into the next round of the tournament where they wouldn't have to face PSG, which huge competitor. There's so much history there with Leo Messi. So Inter Miami want to win tonight.
So we're going to look for a big win for Inter Miami tonight. Or we'll see if Palmeiras have a thing or two to say, because there are still some certain ways that this group can be swung. But again, you mentioned Leo Messi, of course. We saw some Messi magic in the last game against Porto. Everyone's going to want to see that again, especially when it's an Argentine up against a Brazilian side.
Definitely.
So how much of a role will he have here tonight? I know there were some injury concerns. And Jordi Alba, will we see a full 90 or just kind of some minutes again?
Yeah, so after the game against Porto, Mascherano mentioned that Messi felt a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of pain, but he managed to push through and manage that Messi magic that we all saw, that stunning free kick. Teammates have said they don't get ever bored of Messi. When he places the ball just outside the edge, there's bound to be magic. And so that's what they're expecting tonight. He will play. He trained. We saw him train. He is 100% available tonight. Now with Jordi Alba, he's good and he's available, but we still don't know if we're going to see him for that full game or a little bit of section like we saw against Porto.
All right, well, a draw may see both of the teams through, but nobody here is expecting that. As Mascherano says, they want that main character energy, and that's what we're looking for tonight, guys.
Well, just a reminder, Football America's on tonight as well. You can join them at midnight. Gab Marcotti there, reflecting on that Inter Miami game alongside Casey, Seb, and Herc.
Smokehouse. Smokehouse.
Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Thank you very much for all your questions. Craig, it's kind of a juxtaposition because it's your first day here and it's your last day here, Shaq, before you go on holiday.
Yeah, that's right.
Exciting. Very good.
I'm very excited.
Do you want to share where you're going?
I'm going to Colombia, Dan.
Going to Colombia.
Cartagena, right?
Cartagena, that's right.
Well, beautiful. How's your Spanish? Ready?
Great.
Yep. Ready to go? Why aren't you going? Why don't you take him with you?
Wow. He's inviting people around his house, apparently.
I know. Boy, you know, it's like when you have people around the house, they open the door and it's hot.
I've never heard this before in my life.
Oh, man. Native's here claiming he was up at 2 a.m. watching Manchester City. Are you still sticking with that story,
It's
Native?
factual. It did happen.
Yeah,
It did happen.
Yeah.
There's footage. It did happen, yeah.
No way. No way.
Sitting there thinking, oh, big squad.
For Gab, players like Jude Bellingham are complaining about the pitches in the US again. Why can't they get this critical part of the game correct, and how can they correct this in less than a year?
I mean, I am not, it may surprise you, but I am not a groundskeeper, so
Right.
I don't quite know the technical ins and outs of that. My understanding is that I think, from what I've read, at some of these NFL stadiums, you are in a situation where if you want to get the grass to set and to lay properly, you need to allow a certain amount of time beforehand to do that. And
what's the exact amount of time?
It's basically it's 47 days. Stop it! But I think the point is, FIFA say they will get it right for the World Cup.
Okay.
And as far as the pitch complaints, yeah, I know he complains, and let's face it, footballers always complain about pitches.
Right.
And it feels like less complaints than the Copa America last year.
Oh, a whole lot less.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Look at me for.
Why are you asking him?
Goalkeepers complaining about pitches?
I just said we'd never complain.
Naden, what did you make of the pitches when you were playing in MLS?
Well, that's the thing, it's different because the MLS pitches and MLS stadiums are probably better suited to the games which have happened so far in this competition. But because, you know, they want to be in the big NFL stadiums and lay that turf, before you know it, like in that Real Madrid game, the ball doesn't really bounce. But anyway, you know, that's not up to me to make those decisions. Let someone at FIFA do it.
Okay, who's got the bigger heart here out of this lot? Naden, I'll go with you. Who was the most sad you have ever been about a teammate leaving your club?
The most sad?
Yeah.
Ooh. So that's a good question. Come back to me on that one.
Okay.
I'll figure it out.
All right.
Come back to me on that.
This is no.
Thanks,
Naden. I went for you first for a reason.
Well, actually, I didn't.
Shaka will go. It happens all the time.
Go, Craig, please. I'd like Craig to take this.
Well, the answer is never.
What a massive shock! Oh my goodness!
Who could have seen that coming?
Wow!
No, serious. There's a reason for that.
This is a man whose best man from his wedding lives 2 hours up the road, and he's been here for what, 8 years?
I don't know.
How many times have you seen him?
In 8 years?
Yeah.
I've talked to him.
You saw him at your wedding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
See
He
him
filled
again
his
after that.
functions.
You're infatuated by this.
I just find it amazing that your best mate lives so close.
Because he has a busy lifestyle, and so do I.
You really don't.
Jack, I'm snowed under, right? The reason is, I'm coming in here and just sending me emails about shows and
Oh no.
Club World Cup.
Yes.
Just don't get a minute.
Right.
I left Chelsea,
Yes.
so, you know, I was the one.
People were sad to see you leave.
Well, I wouldn't
Is that how we're turning
I wouldn't go that far.
this question?
And then I also left Celtic after my 2.5
Yes, but
years.
while you were there, people left. It wasn't just all about you.
But not anybody you get.
No.
You start welling up about.
Right,
Just,
okay. I'm not saying welling up, but just like, it's
part of the it's part of the journey.
Yes.
As a player, players come and go, and it's something that you accept. Jack.
I'm with Craig on this.
Yeah, I knew you would be, but I knew both of you would say that. That's why I went to Nedum. Nedum.
Yeah, I played with him for only a little bit, but I was there when he played his last game for City, and it was Sergio Aguero. Because he's got 260 goals for the club. I saw when he first started, then all of a sudden he's just not playing anymore. And as he's leaving, it's in like a half-empty stadium because of the pandemic, and it's like, it was just all a bit sad, to be honest, because that is one of the sort of icons of City over the last 10 years.
That's nice, a nice answer.
No, I could have said one of his mates.
It's a very sad answer. Nedum took the question seriously and answered it very professionally. But in so doing, made us all really sad. I'm thinking of Aguero in the empty stadium.
You work with Craig, you get sad every day. Nedum, who do you think will have a bigger impact on City this season, Bob or Echeverri?
Ooh, I think I'm going to say Bob just because he's a little bit older and a little bit more experienced. But it's interesting because Echeverri was apparently going to be in the process of going on loan again and so on as a young player. But Guardiola's told him that he wants him to stick around for this period of time. So I think he's got one eye on making sure that he's part of the attacking lineup going forward. But I think Oscar Bob has done it before, and I think he'll do it again.
Nedum mentioned COVID. Of course, we kept doing the show throughout that time, and one big talking point was Xhaka's lack of air conditioning.
Yeah. Which is going to say lack of effort.
that's pre-post. That's all through pandemic. Xhaka, do you have air conditioning now in your house?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, lovely.
I had air conditioning in the house. It was just very loud, so I had to turn it off.
You had to turn it off when you were on.
He's moved house, hasn't he?
He has moved house. Yeah.
For what he's paying, you'd want freaking air conditioning.
It's all going on the Colombian trip.
Because whenever he paid the money, they had big windows when they saw him come.
Right.
Right,
Gab, I'm going to go with you because no one else will know what's going on, I don't think, with this. Is there any way that you can get Crystal Palace to come to their senses and keep Woody Johnson far away from their team? He's the worst owner in all the professional sports worldwide. Don't believe me? Ask any New York Jets fan.
Yeah, so Woody Johnson, a.k.a. Robert Wood Johnson, is the owner of New York Jets, former ambassador to the Court of St. James on behalf of the United States, UK ambassador, between 2017 and 2021. He has bought John Textor's...
Wikipedia, calm down.
He has bought John Textor's shares. So what I can reassure you about, John Textor had the worst possible deal, I think, of any owner in history. He owned, I believe it's 45% of the club, but he only had 25% of the say. There's three other owners, Harris, Blitzer, and Steve Parrish, and none of them liked him, and they all ganged up on him all the time. So he had no say despite owning a bigger chunk of the club. So I'm gonna guess that if Woody Johnson bought those shares, the Textor shares, he would have bought them on the Textor terms, which means he'll just be there and he won't have any say.
Okay.
He'll just put in a lot of money and let other people make the decisions.
So don't worry, calm down.
Does that reassure you?
There we are.
By the way, he's the heir to the Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical. That's the Johnson.
Wow, there you go. Lovely. Anything you'd like to add, Shank?
No, just nope.
Gab, start, bench or drop. Del Piero, Totti, Baggio.
Oh
boy.
So my views on this have evolved somewhat over the years. I feel like I have to start Totti.
Okay.
Simply because he's Totti. And I love the fact that he turned down. He's the guy who gave him one of those lines which I really resonate with me, which is when it comes to medals, 1 title at Roma is worth 10 at Real Madrid or Juventus.
All right. Yep.
So I'm going to put Totti first.
How many did he get at Roma, by the way?
He got 1.
Okay.
He also won a World Cup.
No, but that's just a saying. Doesn't mean he got one.
Imagine if he never got one. And then I think I would probably bench, this is going to surprise people, I can probably bench Del Piero.
Right.
Simply because there was a work ethic to him, which I always liked, even after his bad injuries meant maybe he wasn't as brilliant as early in his career. But he always put in the effort, always put in the shift. And then, remarkably, I would drop Baggio, who may be the greater player of the three, maybe the most talented player of the three. But the last couple years of his career, it became almost like a sideshow. So I know it's very tough between them. It's like choosing your favorite child, but yeah, that is.
Andy, so on that subject, who is your favorite child?
He had a ponytail as well. That's a big one.
He could pull it off, though.
No, he didn't. Nobody could pull it off.
It was in his latter years. He had this.
I'm not a fan of
He still has the same. He still has it. But who do you think? Who looks better with it? With Baggio or Erling Haaland? Who looks cooler?
Nobody looks good in a ponytail.
Baggio.
Nobody.
There you go. All day. Haaland has to do something with that bum.
No,
he needs to fix it. I mean, he's got to sort
ponytail.
himself out there. No, you know.
I'm serious about one thing in life, and it's ponytails, Dad.
Yeah?
Yes.
Well, listen.
Just
what do you know about hair? Remember you tried to grow a beard? What a shambles. What a shambles that was.
Very barely beard. I thought.
Nadem, as the show's promotion relegation expert, with all 3 promoted teams going straight back down in each of the last 2 seasons, is the gap in money and talent between the Premier League and the Championship becoming too big to overcome?
Do you know what? I'm going to have to eat that because that's technically who I am. I'll talk about City and I'll talk about relegations. That's basically it.
Yeah. Oh, look. What a useless graphic. What's the point?
Yeah. I think the gap is becoming quite big, but I've got a bit of hope in Leeds staying up this year.
Okay.
And I think maybe that'll come at the expense of maybe like a Brentford because they've lost such a good manager. And perhaps they won't be able to sort of cruise their way to 40 points like we've seen in the last couple of seasons. But it's not looking good at the moment. And I'll be honest, I don't really fancy Sunderland as it stands to get too many points. Let's just say that.
Final question.
Somebody might have spent a lot of time on that. It's back!
There it is.
Somebody
we know.
Well, somebody spent a lot of time putting that together.
Oh, sorry,
I don't think it's right that you are, you know, denigrating the hard work
of the
people behind the scenes.
For that.
As bad as that graphic was, useless. I mean, I don't know.
Final question, Craig.
Just because you're having time off and you got your own parking space.
I do.
It really annoyed me when I came in today.
Oh, did you drive past it?
Yeah, but I drove past it, and as I drove past, I was like swearing.
Yes.
Then luckily there was a space.
Oh, I can't wait for it not to be a space.
So I got in.
Craig, when asked what changes Steve would make as a replacement host for Dan, aside from having refreshments on the set, he would say he would allow drinks to be on the desk.
Craig, when I
so basically,
Stevie.
Yeah. So I said basically, if I get the call during the show, Stevie is on standby to come in and host.
That's not happening.
No, I know, but
it can't happen.
Well, but it would be quite funny.
Actually, I would pay money for that.
It would be very...
Exactly, that'd be
just
great.
to sit here.
He asked 3 changes that he could make, and one was that you could have drinks on the desk. I'm not sure alcoholic or
soft
non-alcoholic.
drinks?
Yeah, exactly. That's where we're going.
Yeah.
And then everything else was really just about winding you up. A lot more goals, a lot more guests, basically just everything to poke at you until you would just walk out.
Well, he likes lots of goals because he doesn't have to think then, does he?
He sent me a picture, by the way, today of him walking the dog in his slippers. He forgot again to put his shoes on.
Well, the worry for you is that you know, I know you've got, you know, you've got some health things you need to sort out. But there's no sentiment in this game if things go really well when you're away.
What if? Where are we going with this? That Stevie's going to take over?
No, someday.
He just wants your parking spot.
I know. Well, if Dan gets sacked,
yeah,
maybe
I'm
you'll
taking
get a
the
host
parking spot.
who's appreciative of graphics.
Yes,
exactly. That's very true.
Even graphics that are wrong.
Thank you. Well, standard. That is it. That brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you very much. ESPN FC returns to your screen tomorrow. Gab will be back with us tomorrow. Are you here tomorrow as well, Craig?
You're done. Right?
I'm not. I'm not done.
Are you here tomorrow? I thought you said you weren't ever doing 2 days in a row during the summer.
I never said that. I said 1 day in a row.
Kay will be here.
Benfica, there's a big game tomorrow. Benfica Bayern.
Oh yes, very hot. Discuss that.